Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Industry Leaders podcast episode. I'm your host, Maria Birova, Clean Health Master Coach and WBFF Pro. Today, we're going to be talking about how to create a high performance lifestyle with none other than Corey Boutwell. Corey, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm really good. Thank you for having me on the show.
Of course. Now, we usually kick off our podcast with a little introduction, and I'll hand over the mic to you to tell our listeners who may not be familiar with you a little bit more about yourself. So, how you started in the fitness industry and what you're working on today.
Yeah, good question, and thank you. So essentially, what I really wanted to do was sort of spread a really positive message to men to really raise their standards and upgrade themselves. And through completing, I think a lot of men throughout the period of like their life are a little bit uncertain exactly where they want to go and where their
Yeah.
purpose is. So I not as like a distraction, but to fill in the time and the space. I was like, well, I'm going to finish this business degree, start a business degree, go to uni, get it done, and see where it takes me because these skills will be beneficial. Completed the
Yeah.
university degree, jumped into an office space and realized how unhealthy everyone was in the office space. Everyone was stressed out. Their postures were terrible. They were eating bad. They had bad sleeping habits. No
Yep.
one was training. No one was really doing anything in the office space. And I was like, man, someone needs to like revolutionize this. And in
Exactly.
terms of looking at like business projects and business plans and the effort that people would put into a project and a successful business with risk plans and stuff, I thought to myself, imagine if you used all of these skills and applied them to yourself. And during this time, I was in my early 20s and I'd been competing in bodybuilding, natural bodybuilding
Hmm.
competitions and all these other different ones and had done quite well. Was I wanted to step it up and compete in the WBFF game. And
Whoop,
what
whoop.
I did was, yeah, whoop, whoop. I was like, well, I still want to do this naturally
Yeah.
and I'm going to need to somehow get the upper edge to win a pro card and
Yeah.
and beat everyone else. So I applied and understood heaps of different things in terms of hormone wise, psychology, health optimization, using different like DNA types, using aura rings and sleep tracking,
Yeah.
understanding exactly what my biology was doing, learning meditation, being mindful, optimizing my relationships, being an inspiring leader, being in a position where I knew that I was really going to thrive, getting really clear on my passion and my purpose. So I had the most amount of energy.
Yeah.
I was recovering as best as possible. I was having every single edge, nutrition, sleep, everything, biology, blood tests, everything to get myself into a really optimized level so that I could actually, win the competition. And throughout very detailed plans, like lifestyle plans, I ended up applying that to myself and won the pro card.
Let's
And
go.
yeah, let's go. So that was really awesome. And then since then, what I've been working on is, I've been working with some industry professionals, a lot of young entrepreneurs, business owners, marketers, investors, um, just a whole bunch of people, like high performing people and athletes, and have been using all the techniques that I use and the theories and the myth and
Yeah.
the optimizational techniques in order to get people to increase their standards, understand
Yep.
their purpose, and absolutely crush it. And have been doing that since. I offer like one-on-one coaching programs, and I have a group coaching program which I run every single month. And I've been working on that, and people are getting awesome results, and it's amazing to see. So thanks for asking
And
that question.
of course, and we're going to dive in deeper to find out a little bit more specifics about your coaching and the way you coach, because a lot of our listeners are coaches or are looking to become coaches and enter into the industry. So we're going to pick your brain on that as well. But before we get into that, we're going to start learning a little bit more about you, a little bit more. So talk to us specifically about your journey with competing. Obviously, when it comes to competing as a natural athlete, it can become really difficult. I myself have seen that difficulty even as a female bikini competitor. And there are a lot of things, and you mentioned some of them earlier, that you need to make sure that you are on top of to make sure you're optimizing them to be the best athlete you could be naturally. Because sometimes it gets to the point where being a natural athlete can really make things difficult when it comes to competing. So give us a little bit more about your competitive journey to becoming a pro athlete.
Yeah, for sure. So I sort of take a little bit of an outside the box perspective on this. And one of the most important things, I get a lot of my clients to do this as well. And one of the most important things to understand is that your relationships are so ridiculously important. They
Agreed. Yeah.
remove a lot of stress and they really, really support you. And if you
Yeah.
understand and dig into the science of oxytocin, the love feeling, it really helps. I did some research on this. It helps like improve testosterone and quality of life. And
Yeah.
the more stressed you are, psychologically, I was talking to Luke Tulloch on this, and he was talking about some studies that show the more psychologically stressed you are, it has a response to you physically. So I was
A
like, well, it's not just
100%. Yeah.
100%. So it wasn't just for me making sure that my nutrition and sleep was on point. I was like, well, what can I do in regards to this?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, in order to receive love, I'm going to have to give as much love as possible.
Yeah.
So I would do things like send my family really nice messages, like specific ones to my sister, my mom, and my dad, and just a lot of my friends.
Yeah.
I'd call them up and give them a lot of appreciation and like acknowledge them in ways that, I would also like to be received.
Yeah.
And what goes around comes back around.
Right.
And what happened was I also told everyone the exact goal that I was doing. So whether
Yeah.
you're like competing in fitness, it's health, whatever mission or goal that you have,
Yep.
instead of hiding from everyone and thinking to yourself like, oh, I'm just going to focus on this and crush this all by
Yeah.
myself. When you understand all of the, biological responses that happen with your body and stress, which is competing, just crazy amounts of stress. If anyone's tried to
Exactly.
diet or compete, when you tell everyone the process of your goals, everyone turns around and supports you. And that
Agreed.
eliminates so much stress. And they also hold you accountable so that
Yep.
you have to show up every day. You have to be consistent. So that's one really important technique that I did that helped me really focus and crush it and get the best physique of my life for competing. But it also helps for other people for whatever goal they have, whether it's a business goal, a financial goal, finding their purpose, just getting back on top of themselves,
Yeah.
is telling people about these things in order to remove the stress, increase the accountability, increase the love and support and the quality and happiness of your life, which biologically improves your adrenal glands and everything
Yep.
else as well. So that's a little outside the box technique that I like to focus on, that I find not too many people I know actually
Yeah.
dive into that, as well as nutrition, sleep, and the rest of it.
I think oftentimes, especially when it comes to competing, it may seem from the outside perspective as a very selfish sport because at the end of the day, it is, right? When you're going through a competition prep, the people around you are also going through it. I myself am 2 weeks out from the United States Pro Am, so it's been really rough. But it's that what you mentioned of mentioning your goal to the people around you, and sometimes it could get very hard to have the energy to keep up your social circle, but it's about really prioritizing putting in the love in the space that you're in so you're able to receive it. And that was one of the biggest things, even within myself, without even noticing it. I saw myself doing that this prep, was really being open about my competition prep, and not only receiving support from my close loved ones, but even like I'm an in-person coach as well, and being more transparent about what I'm going through allows my clients to really support me and know, all right, Maria's going through it today, so we got to push a little extra harder just for her, and you need to make sure that you're nurturing the relationships around you, even during times where you're literally putting so much stress on your body. And it doesn't have to be about competing. It could be about, like you said, any goal. Don't feel as though you have to go through these things alone. It goes with everything. I think that yes, it's great if you're achieving things by yourself, but we're a community. We thrive when we have the support of others. So I really like that you brought that up as a tool for your success. Now, when it came to your nutrition and training for a competition prep, what did you do differently in comparison to maybe like a lifestyle goal or prep or something that you do for your clients as well? How is it different than that?
Yeah, for sure. So I take everything in terms of, and I'm sure you would agree with this as well, is a very individualistic approach, finding out work or something that works exactly for you. And what I did
Yeah.
was I spent a whole lot of time, and what really helped me was write out some articles so that I could understand. Because you can read and learn and take notes on things, but it's not until, and correct me if I'm wrong here, in your
Yeah.
opinion, is it's not until you actually do something is when you learn about it, right?
Yeah. And it's not until you make the mistakes. I think a lot of times people fear making those mistakes. And, you have to walk in the mud in order to be able to go through it. You have to understand that it's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows, and it's going to be difficult. But too many times people hold back when it's a little difficult or it looks intimidating. So I do agree with that 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks
And
for sharing.
so we're going to talk. Oh, go. Yeah. And so when it comes to specifically nutrition, what does your typical day look like of eating for yourself at the moment?
Awesome. So what I did, just as like a little backstory to understand what I needed to eat, was I did a DNA test, I did a bunch of blood tests, and I monitored my HRV response and my glucose. So I got a glucometer. So I had all these little techniques. I got a glucometer to test when I was having reactions to certain foods and what would spike my insulin, when I needed to spike it. I looked at my DNA type, so I figured out what foods would work best for me. And after writing those articles and doing something, what I did was I wanted to research what all the best ingredients in Australia that I could use towards to give me the best
Yeah.
advantage of pushing forwards. And there was a few little techniques that come out of things that I just researched, which worked for me. And one of them was using Celtic salt. Celtic salt has a very
Interesting.
high, yeah, so it has very low sodium, but very high in minerals. And obviously, when you understand the importance of hydration, and especially for competing, how important it is, you need
Yep.
all of those, as many little extra minerals as you can get. And and if you know anything about ketosis and the salts that are used in that as well, they really help. So I picked that salt because it's very high in minerals, and it
Yeah.
really helps to make me my hydration, get my brain performing, and my adrenals, and lower my stress. I also took and used bone broth, which is also like the Australian bone broth, which in a goo type, not a powder. You can get bone broth in a powder,
Yeah.
being a bone broth in a glue, which had all the different collagen. It was very high in minerals. It's very high in very quality protein and omega 3s. So I used those two tools, and after looking at my DNA type, I'm more situated to a fat-based diet. But obviously,
Mhm.
while you're training, wanted to make sure that my glucose and glycogen levels were high. So I figured out the numbers and the macronutrients that I needed for me to have, like, the bare minimum to keep my glycogen so I could actually
Yeah.
perform in the gym. And I saved all of my carbs for essentially the end of the day. So I could refill my glycogen then and deplete it throughout the day, but I kept my minerals extremely high. Then I
Gotcha.
chose foods like we have barramundi here. And when I did a whole bunch of research,
Yes, that is my fish of choice this prep. Luckily,
right?
it wasn't too hard to find barramundi here. We have it. It's not fresh, not where I get it from, but that's my fish of choice. So I use it especially closer to the end of prep as my lean protein source.
Woohoo! So I looked on Dr. Oz, and he's a very respectable doctor, his website, and they had these whole articles on barramundi deep into the research. And even if it's farmed, its quality of the meat is still extremely high. It's lean, it's higher in omega 3s, and what the barramundi actually eat isn't like other fish, which is like swimming in their own feces
Yeah,
and stuff. Barramundi is very sustainable and ethical, even if it's farmed. So I was like, well, that's a no-brainer. I'm obviously going to eat like a lot of
yeah,
barramundi. And in Australia, we have kangaroo, which is a wild, they're all caught wild. They're not farmed. They're all shot and caught, and sustainably. So they have like heaps of rules and regulations around what's actually shot. So the quality of the meat is a lot higher. And then I add a lot of different vegetables and herbs. There's a lot of different people in prep that when you start looking into the research of how powerful herbs are, ginger, turmeric, coriander, parsley, mint, or anything, basil, all of these different things, they're very high nutritionally dense foods.
yeah.
So I would have like an entire punnet of parsley, or
Oh
entire
gosh.
punnet of coriander in one
Yeah,
serve of a meal, which it literally, like parsley, for example, is very high in calcium, and it cleans your
yeah.
blood. So you're just removing all toxins, you're removing all stress, and you have like the biggest foundation possible in order to go forward. And this doesn't work. This is like, it's not just for competition prep.
Yeah.
If
I
you're
was just
someone who
gonna
wants to
ask
just,
you if
yeah.
your approach, you do the similar approach with your own clients as well.
Yes, but we just for my own clients, because a lot of people that work with are business owners who are looking for anti-aging things and want to optimize themselves and have best energy and feel real confidence. It's not like they're getting crazy lean,
Yeah.
but all of these different things that you use and you do them in a healthy way for your competition prep. I felt great. My whole prep
Yeah.
was amazing. My competition day was fantastic. I was never like had a couple of days where I was tired because I forgot to hydrate
Yeah.
as best as I could have, but throughout the whole period, I remember people were like, oh.
Yeah.
I was like, I feel fantastic because I've been eating all of
Yeah.
these really good foods. So for anyone who's just looking to upgrade their performance in general, when you make a few of these switches and you understand the
Yeah.
science of them, it greatly increases your chance of performing as best as possible. But obviously, sleep for me was number one.
Yeah, sleep sometimes becomes very difficult, especially when you are in a competition prep. So you got to prioritize these things, and there are little things here and there that can, like you said, it's individual to you and whatever works for you. And if you're able to sustain it and it makes you feel good, and you're able to comply with whatever you need to do to get you to your goal, do it. There is no one right way to things, and I think people like to hone on the fact of like they have the magic way. Well, if it works for you, it works for you. That's great. And that is why it's important to make sure you're looking into these things and trying these things. There's not cookie cutter ways for each and every person. Like we all have our own methods and tips and tools that we can use to maximize and optimize our health. But make sure you're putting in that effort to either hire a coach or look into those things yourself. I love that. I have my little tips and tricks here too. Melatonin is my best friend because sleep, when
Hey.
you're super excited about a competition prep, teas and melatonin are the things that keep me and help me get to sleep. We're going to talk now a little bit more about what your day in the life looks like. So, what does a typical week in the life of Corey look like for you at the moment?
Well, there's one really good tip that I like to share with this. And for me, it's like people will write out a routine and they'll try and stick to it for a certain period of time. But certain goals and lifestyle factors and things change. So I
Yeah.
try to implement I be really flexible in my routine. I know that my routine is going to change and I'll rewrite it
Yeah.
consistently, like all the time. So it has been vastly different to what it is now, but essentially I try to keep a few staple things happening. And that is like
Yeah.
one really thing that I like to do, especially because we're all working and I'm sure you agree, everyone has busy weeks, is I rest on Mondays because I want that to be like my biggest.
Really?
Yes, I want
That's
that to be,
that's
yeah.
unique.
All right. Because I want that to be my day where I can prioritize my work and
Yeah.
really like kick ass on my work. And I fast on Mondays. So I'm not worried about meal prepping. I'm not worried about food. I can set up my entire week. I can get all the most important tasks done on Monday so that I am free from stress from the rest of the week, which
That
is,
is a
I find.
very interesting method. I don't think I have been ever able to do something like that where I take Monday off. Mondays tend to be like the busiest, but it's like I'm juggling everything. So it's like I can't take Monday off ever. So that's very interesting approach, but I can see how that works because towards the end of the week you're easing off a little bit and are able to fully allow yourself to chillax.
100%, right? So I try to get in my heaviest training on the weekend because that's when I've got the most amount of time. Take my rest day on Monday and I set my week up for success on that day because I've got the most time that day to really, because you
Yeah.
want to go off with a bang work-wise. So
Yeah.
that's what that looks like. That's a little specific day, fasting on that day, do a 24-hour fast. I find is extremely beneficial to me. And a lot of the clients that I work with, like if they're high performers or whatever, they're like kind of find out like, wow, this Monday thing works because now I don't have to worry about all the things that I had to worry about on Monday because I got them all done.
Yes.
But yeah, so but the normal day sort of works for me. I wake up pretty early. I wake up at like 5:30. The first thing I do is journal, and it's just normal practices, gratitude, journaling. I like to read something hard and stimulating because when I'm first thing in the morning, it's like hard to get the brain connections happening. So
Waking on up, barely opening your eyeballs. Yes.
yeah, exactly. So I like to read something challenging to, start to fire and wire my brain up. Then I hydrate as best as possible. I hydrate with a lot of Celtic salt, lemon, and I take a small amount of supplements. It depends. I kind of cycle on and off with supplements. Sometimes vitamins, and other times I don't have a break.
Yeah.
And then I'll either do cardio or I'll train. It depends what's happening. If I do cardio in the morning, I'll try to train at midday because I try not to train after 2 p.m.
Mhm.
If I train first, I'll do cardio immediately after, then I'll do a different form of cardio in the day. So they're sort of like my exercise blocks, first morning and the middle of the day. And
Gotcha.
then eat something that doesn't have as many carbs and something with fats to get my brain going. Try to walk or move immediately after I eat, but essentially I schedule my work blocks in times of minutes. This is like when I'm on my this every single day, but this is
Yeah.
the way we work in terms of what I've learned in terms of is humans work of 90 minutes. We sleep in 90-minute
Yes,
cycles
I
and
do that
work in
myself
90.
too.
So I'll pick a 90-minute block. I'll work for 90 minutes. I'll do something to then either half an hour or whatever, start my next 90-minute block. And then I'll sort of eat from there and repeat that
and I try to shut everything off
at like 5:30 or 6, try to shut everything off to like minimize stimulus so that I can calm down and get a really good sleep. And I try to finish eating at roughly 5:30, 6 p.m. so that I have a few hours before bed, so that my heart rate variability and my recoverability really increases. Because if you eat before bed, I'm sure a lot of people listening probably understand this, but eating takes up a lot of your body's energy. Like if you think about all the different organs and our blood works, it is a super taxing process. And it is of all the research and looking at all the data, testing myself, that I eat, everything just turns to trash. My deep sleep turns to trash. My light sleep turns to trash. So the earlier that I eat and to digest the food, and it's really hack as I take digestive bed because they help the digestion. So that digestion process. So it's going to digest everything more quickly in your body, so that when you go to sleep, you have a better sleep, which is all the do in order to optimize sleep, so I wake up feeling refreshed as possible. So there's a couple little tips there. I hope that we learn. I'm sure you can relate to a few.
What would you say would be, like, you talk about these tips and hacks, but you specifically work with a lot of men, and there are very inspiring women out there that inspire and encourage females in the gym and with their health and wellness, but there are not that many men, or at least we don't talk a lot about that. So what would you say would be like your hacks for men wanting to create a happier and healthier life for themselves? What are your go-to tips for that?
Awesome. So I dove really deep into the research of this, and I spent like a real lot of time going like down rabbit holes and then self-reflect, sort of testing my clients to figure out what happens. And it's sort of majority wise from my experience and what I've researched, this is what I've uncovered and tested comments and talking to people. Was that girls, their purpose in life, my perspective, what I've seen, and they're constantly, am I giving enough love right now? Am I receiving enough? Internal questions that they're asking. Yes, purpose, mission, goals, all that stuff as well. But deep down, it's like, am I giving and receiving enough love at the moment? Which is really important to know, because when girls get stressed or they're trying to figure some things out, it's like, okay, maybe you just need to give love, or you need to figure out how to receive some love right now. And immediately their stress goes, oh. When
the breath of relief.
The breath of relief. Oh, I'm getting love right now. I'm receiving love. I can give some love right now. Really important to know. Men, it's completely different. So the internal question for men that they always ask themselves is what I am doing right now contributing to my purpose, my vision, or my mission? Or am I certain that I even know my purpose, vision, or mission? And that's what they're constantly asking themselves. And it's not until that men understand why they're alive and what their purpose is nothing sort of makes sense or will fall into place. And they never get that moment until they understand what it is, and they're contributing and they're taking the necessary steps and achieving the small goals along the way in order to get there. And if they're not achieving those little steps and they don't know what they are, they'll never have this moment. And then they just
that
get
sense of relief.
They just get wound up, and then they just start self-sacrificing. They put too much pressure on themselves. They start to feel unconfident. They start to, lose a lot of sleep. They start to, self-sabotage in certain different ways, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, porn, whatever it is. It just comes out in different different avenues, because men's energy is very strong. If you understand, like, men are like sort of designed to go out and hunt for battle and war. If they're not cultivating that energy, then it will just shoot off somewhere negatively. So it's really important for them to understand that. And a real useful tool specific for men and women is just understanding, I'm not sure if you know about the hero's journey or the hero's myth.
What is the hero's myth? And even for our listeners who may not be familiar with it, let us know a little bit more about that.
Cool. So the hero's journey, you can sort of look up anywhere. This is so fantastic. This is like my favorite thing and favorite model to work on, because it can help you pinpoint exactly what your next step is for your journey, men and women. And this is a story that has been told throughout all of history and all different stories, tribes, religions, forever. Like, I mean, every religion. If you're looking at Egyptian Book of Dead, if you're looking at old school, like Western and Eastern philosophy. If you're looking at like Christianity, Buddhism, all these other things, if you look at how Star Wars, Harry Potter, Peter Pan, and everything's played out, like all these different movies, they tell the same story, and the best ones. And essentially, like a really, really, really quick summary of that is we're constantly getting called to an adventure. And we can either take the path of most resistance and dive in, or we can refuse. The more that we refuse what's happening, the more resistance that we feel when we get stuck. And it isn't until we accept what we need to do and unconsciously understand what we need to do when we dive into this world of temptations. You may either get helped, or you're going to be learning certain lessons in order to the dragon's lair is what they use for the terminology, which is always the lesson for the gold in the dragon's lair is some sort of internal reflection or understanding about yourself, or some sort of self-confidence or self-belief, or knowing where to give love and receive love, or understanding what your purpose is. And then you sort of got to jump into the journey of going through the tests and the trials, get the gold out of the dragon's lair. And then when you are that person, you understand those things, you give it back. And if you don't give it back and you're not sharing with your friends and family, you're not sharing it with yourself or the rest of the world, and you're not sharing that gift, is that'll also hold you back from getting what you desire. And then once you learn those lessons and you cultivate that, you can have some serious respect and pride for yourself, which sort of allows you to start, the whole journey again, which is somewhere else. So we're constantly going around. And I think that's really important to know and understand and pinpoint those certain areas and do as much as you can to support that journey for yourself.
Yeah. And I think one thing that you touched on that's really important, and this goes for anybody's goals, is, to stop taking the path of least resistance. And I think I touched base on this yesterday, actually, on a post on my Instagram, is, there is a certain thing about putting pressure on yourself. There's levels to that, right? You don't want to put so much pressure that it negatively impacts you, but we need to get real with the fact that sometimes you're going to feel that pressure, and sometimes it's going to be difficult, and usually that path of least resistance is going to be something that you're so hesitant to do, right? And it's something that that it's going to get you where you want to be, but our bodies thrive and they want to be comfortable, right? The minute you're feeling discomfort, they're like, no, you can't do that. And then your brain goes like, why you can't do that? You need to sometimes be able to build up that confidence and courage to really tell your brain to shut the fuck up, right? And really listen to your inner warrior and go on that adventure. And you need to embrace that, men and women. You got to dive into that confidence, and that kind of puts me in the position to ask you. You talk a lot about confidence for men. What are your go-tos to develop that confidence in men? And what are your tips that you provide when you are coaching men to do that?
So thank you for sharing that, by the way. That was super motivating, Maria.
Very vulgar. Thank you for everyone listening. I hope that woke you up.
So you've obviously heard the term and know the stuff, pressure makes diamonds, right?
Yes. That's how diamonds are made. We're going to reach success with pressure. We need to fall into it, not fall away from it.
100%. But would you agree that if pressure is just been put all over the place and it's not focused, that it sort of will just break everything?
Yeah. Right? Think about if it's not the right type of pressure. That's kind of what I was trying to touch on earlier. You need to be mentally tough to put the right pressure on yourself and be transparent with yourself. And sometimes it's that tough love that you need to show yourself. And going back to that love, right? Love isn't always, sunshine and rainbows. You got to be real with yourself, men and women. You got to stand up for yourself and be like, listen, I need to do the things that need to be done. But go keep talking about confidence.
I will. So yeah, 100%. So what you're saying is 100% what I believe in. So I believe that focused pressure makes diamonds. If it's all over the place, you won't make any diamonds. You're just gonna bust yourself. But one really important thing, like a sort of little model that I created, which makes sense to me and makes sense to a lot of the people that I work with, is what we're talking about beforehand, is understanding the difference between masculine and feminine energy. Feminine as giving, receiving love, and masculine as, what are the goals and what am I doing right now to achieve my purpose? And I sort of just made a little model, which is like the yin and yang symbol. And I put a line on 2/3 to one side and 2/3 to the other. And basically what it means is for masculine energy and masculine men, majority for people that I work with, men are 70% masculine.
Yeah.
And for majority of the girls that I talk to and people that I help and go through different things, they're like 70, like majority 70% feminine. So for men in particular, and for women, I'll just use men as the example for this time, but this
Yeah.
is important to know, is that 30% of feminine energy is to be cherished and protected. And through all the myth they talk about, for men, if they can integrate their shadow and their feminine side, that they can really become them true selves. And it isn't until men sort of really understand that the little things in terms of feminine energy, which is going with the flow, giving love, receiving love, being vulnerable and being open and asking for help and asking for support and all these different things, until that they can really transform themselves. So if we just look at and we just start going through all the different things in a man's life, and you can sit down and write this, because even writing this out is some sort of stillness, self-development practice that men can use, is just like, okay, so what are all the things in your life that's masculine? And if they're not honoring that 30% feminine energy, what happens is that turns toxic and it's super stressed out. It'll show up in negative feminine energy. So unless that they are, which is sort of like stressed out, being needy, being like, just uncertain of a few different things and being frustrated with themselves, that'll show up unless they honor those different things. So as soon as they start honoring and allowing time to go with the flow, be open, tell people that they love them, ask for help and support, because a lot of men always go, no one can help me, no one can do all these different things. And it's not until they take that time to think outside the box and allow that to flow, that it doesn't just like help them out, it supercharges them.
Yeah.
That's the balance. So it's either going to show, it's either you always will have 30% feminine energy there for men, and same with girls, you always have 30% masculine energy there. And it isn't unless you use it for good, make sure that it's positive, it'll just show up negative. And it isn't until when they do that for men, when they get that sort of moment, that they've like, oh, because I'm honoring this, I feel a lot better. And I feel charged up, and I'm doing this for a purpose. Because the reason that, men are doing anything, and because they want to provide, they want to support, they want to protect, it's to give and receive love, right? Which is the feminine side of things. And unless that's sorted, they'll never find their purpose and their passion, and they get super frustrated, and there's no chance in them in, really finding confidence. So there's a lot to get into, because that's just the model. There's a lot to get into specifically for someone's life to figure out, okay, what's all the feminine traits and what's all the masculine traits, and where's the balance, and where can you fit that in? Because 2021 is crazy, right? We're doing heaps of stuff. But I hope that gives you a framework.
Yes. I like that. And I think that too many times we see these gender roles where we're afraid to step into, that masculine energy, that feminine energy. And it's really about embracing them, because it's like, it's part of all of us, right? So you have yours and I have mine, and it's using them to our benefit and knowing how to shift that energy, keeping it in a positive manner, instead of letting it sabotage you and affect you negatively. Now, when it comes to coaching, and encouraging men to prioritize their health and fitness, nutrition, well-being, what are your hacks for productivity and being able to, follow through with that process? Because it's not always easy, right? And then it's something that needs to be sustainable lifelong. So, what is your approach to maximizing that for your clients that you work with?
For sure. So the number one trait that we dive into to achieve that is discipline, which comes out of mental toughness. So I created
Yeah.
another model. So I'm going through all my models.
No,
Thank you for
we
letting me
love
share these.
hearing about this.
So essentially, I created this wheel that sort of goes on with the flow. And if this is respected, for everyone that I've worked with so far, it has supercharged their results. Like, I'm not kidding. We're getting people that have like 3-year goals, and we're getting them done in 6 months. We're having a couple
Awesome.
of conversations with people, and like, it's just an immediate mindset shift. Boom, everything changes. But that's for number one thing, is understanding for men what they're doing is not just for themselves, it's for other people. And in order to honor that, there's a certain like little thing that I've figured out which really works. And if you look at your energy is, let's say, 100% every single day. And this is a very, very brief, this is an in detailed model, but this is a very brief description. If you look at your energy in terms of 100% during the day, 12% should be self-reflection, 12% should be focusing on optimizing and controlling your impulses and urges, 12% should be mental toughness, then 25% should be effort. So actually doing things, whether it's training, doing things, getting up, going, having the grit to go and push through what you need to do. So physical stuff. 25% should be eating, because we know that eating takes up so much energy within ourselves, and then the other 12% should be re-energizing. So I sort of just have 3 E's there: physically
Yeah.
so that physically it's energy, it's effort, eating, and energizing, and then mentally it's self-reflection, optimization and control, and mental toughness. And 50% of the energy should be effort and eating, and the other 50% of the energy should be all of the other things.
Yeah.
And what I like to do is get people to start at self-reflection and stillness. If they don't honor that 12% of energy a day, which could be, for an example, 10, 20 minutes a day, depends on the
Yeah.
person. But if they don't do that Monday to Friday, then the weekend they need to spend an hour or two doing
Yeah.
self-reflection or stillness. If they don't do that for a month, then they need to spend a few days. If they don't do it for a year, then they may need to spend
Yeah.
4 weeks. And you see people who, if they don't honor that over a certain period of time, they'll take a holiday or they'll take a break and they get
Yeah.
sick and they
Yeah.
collapse. So it's just figuring out that certain little balance for people, what they need to put in. And like energizing, for example, could be a massage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's like the last 12%. But it isn't until people understand and honor that little like energy wheel, we can figure out exactly what they need to do within their routine to increase their productivity and increase their discipline. Because if they're not having any time for self-reflection and then they get stressed out, is they're just too busy doing stuff,
Yeah.
and they can never really prioritize a foundation of a good physical and mental health, which ends up ruining everything else. And when people really get over the thought process of will really start to understand that they are their most important asset to themselves, to their family, to their business. And if
Yeah.
you want to be an inspiring leader and you look at all of the, people who are absolutely crushing it in life, like Tony Robbins is a perfect example, right? He's like sort of the ultimate, the ideal. He spends so much time just investing into himself personally, physically, and mentally. He's doing cold plunges, he's doing saunas, he's getting stem cell therapy,
Yeah.
he's making sure that he's working out, he's meditating, he's priming himself, he's reflecting, he's journaling, he's doing all of these things as a priority first.
Yeah.
And it isn't until you have a little bit of time just to stay on top of all the things that you were doing, doesn't have to be
Yeah.
long, is you'll never get the discipline and the grit and the mental toughness that you need to stick through all the stuff that you need to do
Yeah.
without that. So that's just a little framework and
Yeah.
theory, and we can get into the other like nitty
Yeah.
gritty of it. But I think that's like a good sort of framework.
I think I see this often, even within like just the men in my own life. It's, that push of like work, 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 and then neglecting nurturing and caring for themselves, and that all of these things can be applicable to anybody. But I think oftentimes, it's that channeling that self reflection and getting, comfortable with the emotions that you're feeling, your thoughts sometimes can be like it's as a whole, you see a lot of men suppressing that. Women feel more comfortable to share their emotions, and this is just talking in general. Obviously each thing is individual, so if this doesn't resonate with you, that is totally fine. But I think that oftentimes with men, they tend to suppress these emotions and feelings until it gets to that point, like you said, that they hit that breaking point, or they hit that point when everything is collapsing on top of them. So yeah, it's great to be determined and to be grinding and to be working, but you also have to make sure, are you recharging yourself? Are you nurturing that side of yourself mentally and emotionally, so you're able to show up for all of the areas of your life that you want to be showing up? And this goes for everybody. We need to be taking care of ourselves, because only we know what's inside our brains, right? Our thoughts, our feelings. We can really put on a great face and be like, yeah, I got this, no problem. But then our internal battles, we need to make sure we're setting a little bit of time each day. And I prioritize this with my female clients as well. It's setting those 10-20 minutes of non-negotiable time for yourself, whether that's journaling, sitting in absolute silence with the lights off. I have mamas with several kids that are juggling so many roles in their life, just in a dark room for like 10 minutes, just to like we've been saying this whole episode, just to take that breath of relief and reflect is really important. And although it seems like it's nothing, you try it if you haven't been implementing it, or if you're a coach, recommending that for your clients, and just see that mental shift and change when it comes to their actual effort with everything else that they're doing. I love that you bring that up, because especially with men, there's not many role models out there who are talking about this and opening up the platform for it. So it's good that you are doing that and providing that information and guidance and encouragement for men. I love to see that. Now we're going to go into some fun questions. All right. So we're going to do some quick fire questions before we wrap up the podcast. So I'm just gonna run through them. You're gonna give me your answers. These are really fun. So we're gonna start talking about specific workouts. So squats or deadlifts? What's your pick?
I'm gonna go deadlifts.
All right. What's your least favorite workout?
My least favorite workout,
Yep.
the one that doesn't happen.
Okay. I like that answer. What's your favorite workout?
um, a Saturday morning when I have got as much time to spend on the workout, where I don't have to rush it, so I can get all the results that I need to.
Wow, look at you. I was looking for like an exercise. You were getting all I love your response to this. Awesome. Summer or winter, even though winters in Australia are non-existent, unlike my winters here where it gets to like -0 degrees.
I've recently just moved to the Gold Coast, and it's pretty much summer all year round, so I'm a big summer.
Look at the life you're living. Let's trade places.
Must
We
be
have
nice.
snow that could be like 10 feet here in Chicago. I'm from Chicago, from anybody who's listening who doesn't know this. We get snow and there's a lot of it. What's your favorite dessert?
Oh goodness, such a good question. At the moment, chocolate rice.
Oh, chocolate rice. Oh, yum. What's your favorite cheat meal?
Ooh, sourdough and goat's cheese.
Sourdough bread is the best. It's superior. I'm gonna have to agree with you with that one. If you could, okay, this is a good one. If there is one thing you can go back and tell your younger self, what would it be and why?
For
Anything. If you could tell your younger self something, like if you could go back 10 years and tell your younger self something, what would it be and why?
Oh, that's a really, really good question. If I could go back like 10 years and tell myself something, um, it would, oh, man, I'd just tell him exactly what I'm doing now and just say, start doing this, but at
Yeah.
an earlier age, because you'll have an absolute blast, man. So,
I think that's one of the things myself. I'd be like, just keep doing what you're doing. Like,
yeah,
like when I was younger, I think there was a lot of fears about like getting into fitness and doing what falling into my passion, and was a lot of hesitancy. And I think my younger self would be so proud of me today. So just keep on going. So you got to tell yourself that, keep on going, because your future self will thank you for keeping on going. So to wrap up our podcast, we do this with every guest we have. What would be 3 things you'd like to share with those in the fitness industry?
I would say three things. I might just summarize it down into one, to be honest.
Sure.
And I like to, well, here's a quick little framework that I like to work with: theory, practice, mastery. And you have to spend so much time understanding why before you can take action on something. And if you really want to be the better version of yourself, it's thinking outside of the box. Because, essentially, why are you training? Why are you doing these things? It's to get
Yeah.
confident. It's to believe in yourself. It's to be a better version of you. And when you're operating at the best version of yourself, you sort of start to manifest all the good stuff in your life, without a lack of a better word. So when you're reading, when you're researching, when you're learning, don't just skip through stuff. Because a lot of people that I listen to or coach or whatever be like, oh, I'll listen to an audiobook in 2 days, or I'll learn this podcast and I'll do this thing. I'm like, take the time and learn it properly. Pick whatever you want to learn, read something that's difficult or challenging, and all of the different things that you understand, either with what you're learning and what you're progressing for, take action on it. Because it isn't
Yeah.
until you take action until you actually learn. So for example, some of the coaching and how I've learned everything was listening to people that I respect. Like, obviously one person would be Jordan Peterson, and he would recommend, like, oh, if you want to get really good at this, read this book. And I've talked to some people who've been like, yeah, I'd love to read that book, or I tried and I never did. When I use the discipline, the focus, and you know what, I'm going to figure out with my routine, and I'm actually going to read this book because I want to understand why he is such a genius. And
Yeah.
I did. And it's vastly changed my life. So if there's anyone that you respect and you want to be like them, or you really want to work on yourself, understand the stuff that other people have learned, and the difficult things, and spend the time doing the work, not just skipping through and getting into deep work. There's a good book Cal Newport wrote called Deep Work.
Yeah.
And doing that inner work and taking action on it, and teaching other people what you're learning, even if you have to force teach them so that it sticks into your brain,
Yep.
I think is really, really important. And then it's opens up opportunity for you to be an inspiring leader, and to make sure that don't be fearful of getting vulnerable. Because every time that I have gotten vulnerable in my life, everything has just like skyrocketed in terms of progress, success, and everything else.
What a wonderful way to wrap up our podcast. Corey, thank you so much for joining us today. It was an epic episode. Thank you guys for tuning in for yet another episode of the Industry Leaders Podcast. It's such a pleasure, and I'm very grateful for every single one of you listening. Corey, thank you so much for today.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you for asking such amazing questions, and also being that person out there that is doing this out on the forefront of things, and being an inspiring leader yourself, and listening to all the stuff that you've talked about, and your knowledge and your wisdom is nothing short of absolutely exceptional and motivating. I'm super pumped up after this, so big thank you.
I'm blushing. You're so sweet. Thank you so much.